Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Healthy Little Moments podcast. I'm your host, Dorota, and today we are diving into a topic that is both deeply personal and professionally transformative. So, we're going to be talking about self awareness and its connection to finding a fulfilling career. And I'm using that word a little loosely here because it can mean so much more than the traditional definition of a career, and also depending where you are in life, and maybe that's a pivot in your career. And so today our guest is the amazing Mariam, and I've been practicing how to say her last name, Zaruwal.
Perfect. Nice job.
Thank you, thank you. She speaks many languages, and she's a certified master coach who specializes in personal and professional growth, which we will cover today. Also, stress management and positive psychology. And I think that's my favorite thing about her is just her positivity, which shines through in every conversation and even email that we exchange. And she is the founder of A Breed Coaching, and which in her native language is from the northern Morocco, means the path, which I think that is such a powerful name. So I can't wait to dive and lean into that a little bit more. So she's got a background in business engineering and corporate recruitment, and a very, very deep understanding of the struggles that professionals face in our career, in finding clarity and confidence in our career path. Today, she's here with us to share her wisdom. Usually, this information is something people pay a lot of money for, and we get it here firsthand. So, she's going to share her wisdom on self awareness and just the secret key to professional fulfillment. So, thank you for being here with us today.
Thanks, Dorota, for having me on your podcast. I'm very excited for this conversation. Hopefully, it will be insightful and helpful for the listeners. And yeah,
I'm
let's dive into it.
sure it will be. Yeah, let's jump in. So maybe you can kick it off for us by sharing a little bit about your journey. So how'd you go from business engineering and corporate recruitment to becoming a coach focused on self-awareness and fulfillment?
Okay. Basically, first of all, I studied business engineering because I always had this entrepreneurial mindset. So I studied that. I did corporate recruitment. And after being a business manager for a consulting company, I had burnouts. And when I say a burnout, the big burnouts, it's not just superficial, it was so deep that I didn't recognize myself anymore. I lost the track of who I was behind that experience. And that's how we say that in English, like having this battle. I always believed that behind any struggle, there is a good. So I was trying to convince myself, okay, Mariam, this is happening, but behind it, there is something beneficial. There is like a blessing behind it. But at that moment, let me tell you, like I was only seeing dark. And somehow, by advising my friends, I was always there paying attention to how they feel. And when they were like talking about professional experiences, I was like, okay, stop, pause, bear in mind what happened to me. And you have to be aware of this and this and this. So I was giving them advice. And then out of sudden, and I still remember that time because, I believe in life, there are those core momentum when your life changed. And I was giving advice to one of my friends. And then I realized, I told her I should be a coach.
Yeah.
I should be a coach. It just came so naturally. And at that moment, she was like, you're right. This is you. You have to do it. Because I always wanted to have a positive impact on others' life. And that was missing in business management, business engineering wasn't like making any sense for me because I didn't find myself having that positive impact that I was aiming for. So from that on, I trained myself. I followed courses to become a master coach. So master means professional and personal coach, specialize in stress management because obviously I experience burnout. So this is like the specialty. Sorry guys, because I don't French is my mother tongue, so English is not the best. Bear in mind with me and be gentle with me. So yeah, stress management and also positive psychology was what I choose. And why positive psychology? I experienced burnout, but not only, also depression. And from there, it just makes sense that I wanted like to have that positive impact that I was like talking about. And I needed tools to help out people.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is how I become a coach, but professional also because, so many people suffer from not being fulfilled in the career. And when you're thinking about the amount of time we're spending at work, it's just insane that people don't take time to realize, am I happy? Am I fulfilled? Am I fulfilled or not? And this is why, if I can help in my way, this is the best recognition I can have.
That's a powerful story and something that is so needed because when I think about my friends, and I think I have many because I love people and I talk to everybody all the time. I find this trend, and let me know if you see this as well. When we get out of college or we start working, a lot of people are almost afraid to lean into doing what they love because they're not sure that doing what they love necessarily aligns with being successful and making money and doing what they're supposed to do. So,
Mhm.
what I'm experiencing a lot of people and my friends, they get the first job, right, that they feel is a good fit. And then 5, 10, 15 years down the road, which is in my age group, just about where I am with
Mhm.
folks, is they have a pause and they have like almost like a midlife crisis where like I hate what I do every day. I have a very, very dear friend of mine who I've known for almost 20 years, and she's pivoting in her career. She was in finance. We were in finance together.
Mhm.
And she realizes she wanted to go work at a nonprofit, but the pay isn't always great, and that's a consideration. And then she did a lot of soul searching that her skill sets and her passion align in HR. She wants to work with
Mhm.
employees and helping with employee culture. And I'm like, it's a great fit for her. But she said it took me 15 years to get here, to make this career pivot. And I have many other friends who've just like quit their jobs because they don't know what to do. So before somebody gets to that point, if somebody is very frustrated, maybe where they are in that midlife crisis and they're dealing with burnout, what advice would you give them? How do you coach somebody to say, what's the first step, right? Like something actionable. How would you address that?
Okay. First of all, let me came back to what you said because it's in your group age, right? You mentioned mid-life crisis, but the same happened to the people who are in their 25 years, which is the quarter life crisis. And I remember because for me it was at the age of 25, and I remember I was like, I'm so grateful it happened at that young age, because
Mm,
once you're married with kids, it's like a different story.
yeah.
But for people who experience burnout, how they can navigate through that. So first of all, let me emphasize the fact that as a coach, we're not supposed to help out people who experience burnout. When they're having the burnout, it's not the job of a coach. It's a job of a doctor and a psychologist, because it's too late at that moment. So for people, it's important to know that they have to take action beforehand, because we all people who have experienced burnout, we know before
Yeah.
to reach that point, when there is no return. Before, along the journey, there are signs that are coming on our path, and we're
Mhm.
just ignoring them. No, I need holiday. You know what? I'm just tired. Maybe, let's say right now it's the winter, right? Oh, it's just a phase. And each time there is an excuse for the fact that we're feeling burned inside. So for me, first step will be for the people who still haven't reached that point, is be aware of the signals, because
Mhm.
definitely signals are coming the way. Then once you reach the point of no return, first step for me, and please, to the people who listen to me, who experience that, take time to rest. Take time to rest. This is definitely the first advice I will give to people, because I can tell you burnout is touching people who, there's this defined people who will experience burnout. They're perfectionists. They
Mhm.
love their work. They need to achieve they have a level of consciousness about professional career, they're always there. They don't allow themselves just to sit back and relax. There is no point. So they're high achiever. But the moment burnout kicks in, take time to rest, because your body is talking to you and you
Mhm.
have to listen to it. If you don't listen to it, you will pay it. And if you are kind of into a battle, you don't want to rest because no, there is no way. I can't afford to rest. then there's also this idea and conception, then I have to, it's like a reward, rest is a reward if I achieve certain things. But then when you're into a pose because you're into burnout, it's as if I cannot allow myself to rest because I didn't do anything. I didn't achieve anything. So people have to be aware that rest is not a reward. So this is the first thing that they will do. Then once they will feel a little bit more of energy, is to pause and think why this burnout happened to me. And that's the introspection phase. But in the introspection phase, they don't have to go too deep, because some people, they might like just think, reflect. And then you're kind of having another burnout on the burnout you have because you want to understand why this happened. But it's really like having a gentle approach to understand why this happened. So then you will learn from the mistake and not remake the same. And after that, when you're in a phase where you understand, and you will understand that with the help of professional, you can go to a psychologist, doctor, the medical staff. At that moment, once you understand, then go to a coach. Then you will dive in. What are my passions? What are my strengths, my values? And then you will start to understand what's your mission, why you are here on earth. Because basically, I truly believe we're all on earth for a purpose, we're just not only here. People might not agree with me, but personally, this is what I believe. And when I say purpose, it's not purpose of professional career oriented, and doing. Maybe your purpose by being your true self, you might just inspire others. And that's maybe your purpose. So this is what I want people like to understand. When I say purpose, it's not like only by achieving, doing, producing. And it's more like, sometimes by being yourself, you can find your mission. But to find the mission, it's like a life exercise, I will say. Your mission might evolve during the years, and that's totally fine. That's totally fine, because what resonates in you today might not resonate tomorrow, and that's fine. That's the way life it is. But you have to find what will lead the little spark within you, and that's the job that you can do with a coach. So yeah, this is what I will advise. But first, please rest.
Yes, it's so important, and we don't rest enough, especially for most of our listeners are in America. And as you know, America's work, work, work. We learn to work instead of the opposite, right? And I thank you for sharing that. It's beautifully said, especially the part about our mission changing. A lot of us put our head down and work, and you wake up a year, 6 months later, 5 years later, 20 years later at retirement, and you say, is this really what I'm still passionate about? And there's an aspect of needing to be consciously aware of where you are. And I know that's a big part of your work, that self-awareness and that connection. Some people call it self-love, and you and I talked about this. We hate that word because it's overused, it's vague. It's now turning into like a fad or a buzzword, right? But if we use the term self-awareness, how does that come into play, and how do you teach that with your clients?
Okay. So basically, let's first define what self-awareness, and I think it's important. And so commonly, self-awareness is known as the ability to perceive and understand the things that make you who you are as an individual. But it's not just about knowing yourself, because it includes also your personality, your action, your thoughts, your emotions, and your behaviors. So it's whole in one package. But when we talk about self-awareness, there are two different dimensions. So the external self-awareness, but also the internal self-awareness. You need both to be a fully fulfilled individual, right? So when I mention external self-awareness, is the way you understand how others see you, while self-awareness is how well do I know myself? So that's the thing that people need to understand. So this is why, I think it's important to define, because it's totally different from self-love, as we have already discussed. And for me, when we discuss about the subject of the podcast, I was like, what will make more sense is for people to truly understand what self-awareness. Because for me, that's a starting point for everything, because everything is interconnected. So then you ask me, how do I use self-awareness to help out my clients, right?
Mm-hmm. And helping them on that journey.
It's a whole process. It's a whole process because when people are coming to me, so to give an idea of what kind of people I'm helping out, it's usually people who are lost in their lives. They're not fulfilled anymore. They don't know who they are. They lost confidence and they lost their confidence and self-esteem towards the path of life, you know? How do I help them? As mentioned, it's a whole process. So we will work first on how is their life at the moment? What's the present life look like? And what's the ideal life they want to achieve? And when I say achieve, I hate that word, by the way. I think like being traumatized by the burnout, it's one of the words I'm trying like to not use. Also the objective, but this is what it is when you're going into a coaching, is because you have a clear idea of something you want to achieve. So the first step will know what's happening into your life right now and what's your ideal life. Once we have done that, we will dive in. What are your values? What are your strengths? What are your fears? Because that's a huge subject. What are your fears, your limiting beliefs? And when I say limiting beliefs, it's, you know, since we're young, we are taught certain things and we are living our life as if it was like reality, while it's only a perception. So how can you deconstruct? Do we say that in English? I don't think we say that.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Your beliefs. And then from that on, once you understand your fear, and it's like, you know, you have a locker and we try to find the keys. But then once we have understood what are your limiting beliefs, we can change them. From there on, we will change them. And again, it's with tools of coaching and through visualization, meditation, and hands-on exercises. It's not only you talking, but basically, if I have to summarize my job, a coach is someone who will ask you powerful question that will make you self-reflect and be more aware of your life and help you to gain more self-awareness. I don't know if it's like clear, but you know, like I would say like it's a match of questions, people reflecting, and also how we put some exercises and tools within the coaching process to help them open their eyes on what's going on and who they want to be.
It absolutely makes sense because when I dive into topics, I like to get into the practical steps for any topic, right? Because it's easy enough to talk about it high level, but when we get into the nitty-gritty, like, okay, what do we do? And you answered my biggest question that I had prepared for today, right? What are those tools and exercises? How do we actually achieve that to create that change from, like you said, laying that foundation from what I'm hearing, right? In understanding your thoughts and then making that will result to getting onto the path towards your goals. Maybe goals instead of achievements. I don't know.
Maybe it's better. Your question is how practically people can implement things, if I understand correctly.
You answered part of that, which is the exercises that you prepare, the tools, the questions, and really working with a coach, which I will, for anybody listening, I will link to Mariam's contact information if you want to work with her more on a one-on-one basis and go a little bit deeper on individual topics or issues. And there's one other question and topic that I want to dig a little bit deeper into today. And it's probably my favorite, and that's positive psychology. So you said you researched that and you use that in your coaching. So if you can maybe touch on that, how do you use that? And this is a combo question, really, how you went from somebody who you said you were struggling with depression in the middle of this burnout to now being such a positive person, because I can't imagine you dealing with depression and you're such a positive light. So if you could just touch on that for our listeners, I think that's really powerful.
Okay, so for the listener, like they have to understand like positive psychology is a science. Instead of focusing on what's bad in your life, you will try to really put your focus on what's going well in your life. And this is why we're talking about positive psychology. And in positive psychology, there are different elements that builds positive psychology. And then once you understand it's not only you as an individual, but also you within an environment, how you interact with others, how this can fulfill you, but also how you will use your time. So when I say use your time is for instance, doing volunteering, all those little things enter into positive psychology for you to be a fulfilled person. So it's not only you, self-love, positive. Something I hate is like, so basically why I mentioned science, because I don't want people to think that positive psychology is only you listening or reciting mantras, positive affirmation and stuff, because it's not about that, but it's really like trying to shift on what's going well within my life. And this will build also gratitude. Mm-hmm. And then from that on, a person will feel better, also with their lives. Positive psychology, you will try to see with your well-being, how can you be more active? What are the steps that you can take in? And it's really like within small actions leading to a big change. You wanted to say something, like I let you like ask your question. No?
The word I wanted to throw out there is sometimes positive psychology is associated with toxic positivity. So it's just where everything's okay and you're happy. And that's not what it is. That's why I love that you said that it's science-based, because I fully agree with it. And there's a time and place, right, for it to start transitioning your thoughts to the place of gratitude.
No, definitely. This is why I mentioned that, because for me, I don't want like people to misunderstand what's positive psychology. And definitely like the toxic positivity, this is something that we throw in the bin, we don't want that in our lives. Definitely, like there is no way. And also like people might be frustrated like with this toxic positivity because because you mentioned tools and how practical we do. And I mentioned there is like a whole process into place, but bear in mind the whole process we include, for instance, we might include positive affirmation, but there is a whole process behind it to work out. It's not only you waking up, watching yourself in the mirror and be like, I'm amazing, I'm beautiful, okay, I love myself. And then people think by repeating that every day, somehow one day there will be this shift of, yeah, wow, really, I believe what I'm saying. No, there is like a whole process, and this is like in the neuroscience. And I think like people have to dive into that, but that's not the subject. And maybe if you want, I can like reply to that afterwards. But then you mentioned like how I went like from depression and burnout to being who I am today. Let's phrase it that way. I've always been the way I am today. So for people who are listening or watching our podcast, but then I lost the sense of who I was during burnout and depression. So I didn't recognize myself anymore during that time. And this is where I mentioned like the life crisis, because it's like burnout, life crisis and depression, like the whole into one. And how did I gain that back? I will phrase it that way. How did I gain myself back? Because I was how I am today, but then I lost the track of who I was. And I think like different things helped me out. So first of all, I did something which is kind of crazy. I was like having this life crisis. I will advise everybody like to do that who's experiences the life crisis. I did a Google form, and the title was, "Who is Mariam?" Okay. I sent that to a bunch of friends and family members as well. I sent that to them. It was anonymous. How do we say anonymous? Anonymous. Okay. Voilà. And the question was who I was, and I was explaining. I put like a little description. I was like, okay, that might be weird for you to receive this Google form, but I definitely lost track of who I am. And this will help me out to know how I'm perceived. And this is where, I mentioned previously the internal self-awareness, but also external self-awareness. And doing that helped me out to kind of reconnect with who I am or with whom I was, because I was reading that and I was like, wow, that's amazing. That person seems to be such a nice person, but it's not me. I don't see why they see this in me, I was like, wow. But then I got emotional, by the way, when you do that. And for people, when you send that, being anonymous is for others to be just true to themselves, and like the aim is not for them like just to cheer you up and be like, oh, you're that way. A critical feedback on who you are. So that's something I did, and it kind of helped me out. After once I went back to who I was like, okay, yeah, see, I was that way, that way, that way. Because one thing is maybe 15% reply to that survey, and there was like one image, because obviously they all knew who I was, and it was like one person. They were all describing the same person. And so that's one of the things. And then the other thing is, I think one of the things that helped me out definitely is my faith. And I remember when I experienced burnout, I was asking people, how did you deal with burnout? Because I remember I met a friend of a friend, and she was Christian, if I remember well. And then she was like, my faith. And I didn't understand that at that moment, but definitely faith, because it gives you like a bigger picture.
Yes. Yes.
And having the spirituality is really important for you to just keep track on, and when it's hard, you will wake up, because when I say that I experienced burnout and depression, God knows there were days I would have just stayed in my bed. I would definitely have just stayed there. And because, I was tired, I was having dark thoughts, really, really, really dark thoughts, which is also like kind of important to talk about, because a lot of people are experiencing mental health issues, and having those dark thoughts, it's okay, because it's not summarizing who you are, but you have to keep faith. And I know that's kind of, difficult maybe for certain people to hear that, because they might not be religious or spiritual, but keep track of this cannot be the summarize of your life,
Yeah.
Those battles are not there for you to live a miserable life. They're there to teach you things. So it's kind of cultivate this, try to cultivate those kind of thoughts. What helped me out is also like being true to my emotions. As mentioned, I never, how can I phrase that? I was true to my emotion, I was listening to them. If I was not feeling well, I will just be with myself and being like, okay, I feel that way. If those dark thoughts are there, I will not just ignore them and be like, no, I can't experience this. And no. But let me tell you, the things that I was repeating myself was, I'm fed up. It's okay. You will be fine. I'm fed up. That's okay. You will be fine. I'm fed up. That's okay. You will be fine, And that's crazy, because when I was like that, I'm fed up, I can't anymore. Then I had this immediate voice in my head. That's okay. You will be fine. And then it was like a circle, And I was like fighting within myself. And then somehow another thing, which so for people experiencing depression, go to your doctor and see if you need some medication. I think there is like no shame into that, but you need like to do the check to understand if needed. And another thing is time. And that's difficult. That's something very difficult to integrate and be just okay with. Because there is one day things will fall into place. But the thing is, you don't have control on that day. You will never know when this day will come. But the only advice that I can give you is to have faith that that day will come. Be reassured that that day will come, and keep going. Even if it's hard and difficult, you have to keep going, but on your path, on your way, This might not go as quick as you wish, and that's fine. Just keep going, because one day you will be better and you will find yourself back. And this is I just want to say something very important here, because why I breathe coaching, the path. And this is the storytelling that I told myself, because you have to understand. I said I am who I was, but it's kind of a lie, because I was an overachiever. I was someone who didn't have like any self-compassion. I was someone who was describing herself as, I am a warrior. Mariam is a warrior. Now she's there. She's fighting. Life is a battle. This is who I was. But then along the way, thanks God, I realized burnout happened for me to have another perspective of life. Because during that journey, when I was like, okay, I'm not a warrior anymore. It's not me. Who I am, my soul, what's my soul is calling. And then I remember I was like visualizing myself into a little fetus,
Mm-hmm.
And there was like this little girl. She wanted to come. But then, of course, like the worry was there and, all those kind of projection. And the moment I did the shift, I was like, you know what? I'm tired to be a warrior. I'm tired to see life as a battle. And what if it's not a battle? What if life is not a battle? From that moment on, new perspective came. And then I remember that time I was like, okay, no, life is not a battlefield. Let's imagine like life is a field. Yeah. But now it's difficult because I am putting the work to plant seeds. I was really seeing that, because I'm visual. I was like, right now it's difficult because I'm working to plant seeds. And one day those seeds will grow and they will be like flowers and trees. And this is life, this kind of like all blossom and all the thing blooming. And then I remember I was like, okay, that's life. And that moment, and then I realized, this is why I'm telling you, I'm who I was back in terms of energy, and kind of way I am. But then the changes are massive. They're massive. And this is also one of the things why I came from business engineering to coach, I'm more aligned now. Because obviously being a business engineering in the society where we teach to be productivity, we only think about achievement, productivity, KPIs, key performance. Then I was tired of that, just only like thinking, yeah.
Love the visual of life is a battlefield and the shift in perspective to a beautiful field of flowers. I think that is so powerful. And you're right, it doesn't need to be difficult. You can stop and smell the flowers, smell the roses, pick up the flowers, enjoy the fruits of your labor. And I think that is so important for that shift to happen when you're in a dark place. It doesn't have to be like this. And it won't always be like this. An old business mentor once told me when I was going through a really difficult professional time, she said, it won't always be like this. And is really good advice to take when things are good or bad. When they're bad, you're like, okay, you have faith. And when they're good, just stop and enjoy because there might be harder times ahead. So just stop and enjoy the good time in your life right now. I think that is a really perfect place to wrap up. I do want to ask you if you could leave your listeners with one key takeaway from today, what would it be?
Okay. So one key today for me is for people to understand it's okay to slow down. Take that in and take within you this piece of advice. You don't have to compare yourself to others. We all have our own path of life and our own timing, and we all have our struggles, but we all have our own rewards and blessings. This will be like my piece of advice. So stop comparing yourself, stop being hard on yourself, and understand, things are the way they are because it's meant for something bigger and for you, but you need to experience your kind of troubleshooter time to get the bigger picture. Have faith, slow down, rest, and everything will eventually fall into place. This will be my take home.
It's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom and your insights today. I love how you can break down such a complex and difficult, sometimes heavy topic into something actionable and so powerful. So I really appreciate that. And to all our listeners, if you're feeling stuck or uncertain in your career or personal life, remember self-awareness and taking some of these steps that Mariam shared with us today is the first step towards a meaningful change. Because that's what we talk about, healthy little moments, right? Just making those small changes that are going to lead to impact down the road. So if you want to learn more from Mariam, you can check her out on Instagram and LinkedIn and her website, all of which I will link below. So make sure to check out some of her coaching work because she is just a wealth of knowledge. And make sure to subscribe. Stay tuned for more episodes where we're going to dive in a lot deeper into just leading this healthy, fulfilled life. So thank you for listening. And until next time, take care and embrace those healthy little moments. Bye.
Bye.